Happy Wednesday to everyone out there. Lucky Lefty Podcast. I'm your boy Shaun Davis at SD2 Mics. We're brought to you by Onora Whiskey, OnoraWhiskey.com. It is that premium American whiskey, OnoraWhiskey.com. And if you drink, you have to make sure that you drink responsibly. Notre Dame has a new offensive line coach, but they also introduced officially their new quarterback coach. We'll talk about that. We'll also get to some very interesting things coming out of the NFL Combine. Isaiah Foskey spoke to the media earlier on today. And then we have a special guest joining the show, former Notre Dame offensive lineman, Robert Hainsey, current offensive lineman for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He'll be joining us somewhere around 30 minutes from now. Should be an interesting conversation. Talk to him about his time in Notre Dame, the legacy of Harry Heastan, and also playing with the GOAT, Tom Brady, down in Tampa Bay. Apple Podcast, Spotify, YouTube. Hit our YouTube channel up, subscribe, smash the like button for us. Also, go ahead, hit the notification bell. Every time we go live, every time we post a new video, you'll know. And then, CFB Nation and Conjunction Irish Breakdown, all of our great content. Tap into it, man. Leave 5 stars. Leave your comments. We greatly appreciate it. Home of the misguided passion. It's the Lucky Lefty Podcast. You already know we spin it different. Look, it's the day after Left's birthday, so we knew there was a chance Left was going to be missing in action, right? So we'll see what time he taps in today. I'm sure he's in recovery this morning, trying to get himself ready to go. But once again, it was a great birthday episode yesterday, right here on the Lucky Lefty Podcast. And, you know, it's amazing when we look at the combine that officially starts tomorrow. You know, I know everyone has heard about the breaking news. Well, it's really not breaking news in the college ranks. A lot of people, college people in the SEC and people that I knew about the arrest and the situation concerning Jalen Carter, defensive tackle out of the University of Georgia, where someone lost their life. Reports came out, more details came out today that they were racing their 2 vehicles. Alcohol was involved. That's why we tell everyone to drink responsibly. Someone lost their life. And so an arrest warrant has been issued, which sounds bigger than what it is from a legal standpoint. Um, I'm sure his attorneys, I'm sure all NFL teams were very aware of what was going on. And Jalen Carter is going to speak to the media today, if I'm not mistaken, and definitely he's going to meet with teams at the NFL Combine. So he won't be working out. So, you know, whatever culpability he has, I'm sure he'll receive several citations and things of that nature. But it's just an unfortunate situation, a very unfortunate situation that took place. And this is what the NFL Combine is about, right? This is when all the stories break about guys getting in trouble, and you sit in a room and teams are asking you about the habits of your mother, your auntie, your older brother, your older sister. It has absolutely nothing to do with anything. The Bears brass at the time was allegedly scared off by Deshaun Watson's mother and her past. And we ended up with Mitch Trubisky. Thank you. Thank you, Ryan Pace. Thank you. Thank you. You're worried about this, and you choose Mitch Trubisky because you were able to go to a dinner with his parents and everything was smooth. So you made the choice, the football choice, to take Mitch Trubisky over Deshaun Watson or Patrick Mahomes. Thank you.
The dinner must have been delicious.
That's the type of idiotic mindsets amongst NFL executives. Like we're trying to win football games, but we're judging everything based upon which makes Deion Sanders' comments even more egregious. Like Deion, don't feed into the beast. Like the beast is already out there. We see it every year at the NFL Combine, and you just want to feed into it. Like stop. But it is what it is. I was actually impressed with Isaiah Foskey and what he said, Left.
Really?
Yeah, we'll get to it in a few moments. But Joe Rudolph and Gino Gaduli are official at Notre Dame.
Let's go.
It's official. You recruited twice by Joe Rudolph. Still have a relationship with Coach Rudolph. And you said on yesterday's show when it was reported that the last hurdle to him being announced will be his meeting with the offensive line. He met with the full offensive line yesterday, and according to reports, they loved him. But you said yesterday that won't be a problem for Coach Rudolph. You said that on the show, like, no, that meeting the players won't be a problem. But once again, just tap into what Notre Dame is getting in Joe Rudolph as an offensive line coach. You on mute, bro.
You're getting the same type of guy that's bringing the physicality and the toughness back into the position. You're not going to lose a step on that aspect. The guy has been in the interior and coaching the interior, the trenches, including the tight end for a good amount of time. And the best part about it is he stand was special at being physical and being aggressive and having great technique. Joe Rudolph, very aggressive, physical. That style of coaching is going to translate well with the guys that are coming in.
Bear with us. We got a little leak in the background. He's just he'll get
Oh,
through.
we're good.
Okay. Man, stop messing with him, man. Let him live his life over there.
Yeah, he's doing all right.
Lucky Lefty podcast, man. This is where we spend it different. Nobody does it like us, man. We include ourselves, our lives, our families, everyone, right?
Right.
Heck,
That's right.
Lil Leak has co-hosted Over Your Right Shoulder on the show before. So
He's been a guest host plenty of times before.
absolutely, absolutely.
The Joe Rudolph aspect, though, I'm really excited because he's a player's guy. I wouldn't say a player's coach, but he's your favorite player's favorite type of coach. So from a unity standpoint, I think he's going to be very strong in that aspect, keeping those guys together. It would be good to see him elevate the technique level of a Blake Fisher and uh, you know the offensive line that's on the cusp. Right, we just need you to
Hmm.
get over the ledge.
Yeah.
We just need you to get them over the ledge. We don't need you to reinvent their whole technique. Just get them over the hump of and get them consistent like we had last year. What they were building on. I think we have a perfect guy to build on top of what we were building as the foundation under Harry Heastan, which is going to be really solid for a guy like Gerard Parker and Gino to be able to bounce ideas off of and be able to talk with Coach Joe Rudolph about things that work really well, especially in the run game. Him being a Wisconsin expert during the years where they were just running the Big Ten literally. Um, I think that's a great resource when Gerard Parker, Coach Parker, was talking about bringing guys together, coming to collaborative on game plans. I know that run game is going to be right with Joe Rudolph in having a hand or some type of collaboration in that side of things. So we may see a run game coordinator evolve out of this position and a pass game coordinator be with Gerard and Gino build on top of what Tommy does. I hope we get some of that Wisconsin influence in the run game from Joe Rudolph as well.
Talking about the Wisconsin influence, I did a show yesterday with B. Drisk, and he just talked about what he brings. Like Wisconsin is different. And I've talked about this. They've been able to dominate run games with different types of running backs,
Different types of running backs, exactly.
different types of running backs, and his time there, whether it was his time in Pittsburgh, the success and the physicality is the one thing that stayed.
Yes.
Right. He's connected to Paul Chris.
White,
Yeah.
Melvin Gordon, or Jonathan Taylor, 3 different backs.
I forgot about James White.
Yeah, Monty
I
Ball.
told Monty Ball. I forgot about James White in that combination of players. So yeah, Monty Ball, James White,
Melvin Gordon, and
Melvin Gordon,
and
Jonathan Taylor. Yeah, totally different backs, totally different schemes.
And to manage it and allow them all to hit their, their peak or their ceiling,
Mm-hmm.
and max out their talent and do it to where they didn't have a guy transfer.
Right.
The room was strong. And the offensive line during that time was crazy too. So Joe Rudolph, in my opinion, Coach Rudolph knows what to do with talented players when it comes to the run game. The O-line is going to be in the right shape. The running back room is going to be in sync. And having the quarterbacks that we have, maybe the run game influences of Tyler Buckner. Maybe it'll be good for Joe Rudolph and Tyler Buckner to come together on some run tactics, some run game type of things. So I do think that Marcus Freeman has put together all the best talking heads that can come together to do one job, and that's called offense.
Yeah, I absolutely love it, man. I absolutely love it. And when you think about, you can question, how things went towards the end, right? Because he was there in 21 when they faced Notre Dame at Soldier Field, and Notre Dame pretty much handled their run game all day.
Yeah.
Right. But once again, the biggest mistake I think made by Paul Chris, and at that point in time, Coach Rudolph was considered the offensive coordinator as well, which is a lot to do both O-line coach and it's the same thing. It's hard to coach a position and be the offensive coordinator. We saw that with Tommy Rees. We saw that with Joe Rudolph when he was at Wisconsin. And the truth of the matter is, when they decided to change philosophy and try to become more explosive instead of sticking to the traditional ground and pound Wisconsin, and they bet on Graham Mertz, that's when everything just started to disperse. Like, that was the beginning of the end for Paul Chris at Wisconsin, in my opinion. So when you think about that and you look at the things that he brings to the program, it's a lot of different things that can be new wrinkles. Notre Dame is continually going to be a power team. They love duo. I think they're going to continue duo under Jared Parker. But when you start, buck sweeps, pin and pull, some of the other things that Wisconsin traditionally likes to do. One of the questions I had, Wisconsin is known for the H-back. They love using their tight ends as a fullback in the backfield, and especially running outside off of that. That'll be interesting to see if Joe Rudolph brings that type of wrinkle. Of course, David Sherwood did some of that for Notre Dame this year. So it'll be very interesting to see if he implements that into the tight ends. He's coached tight ends before.
That's
so
right.
Since we don't have a tight end coach, because the tight end coach is now the offensive coordinator, it'll be very interesting to see if Joe Rudolph is also responsible for coaching the tight ends a little bit along with some GAs. It's going to be very interesting to see what he brings to the table.
100%. That mind of how similar you can be with some of the strategies that Tommy used his tight ends, probably a little similar to how Joe used his tight ends. So I think that when Gerard Parker is talking about collaborative, he's probably saying, okay, Joe can add something to the tight end room that Tommy wasn't clearly doing the best at. That could be different. It could take us to another level. Gino and his experience with developing Desmond Ridder and other Cincinnati quarterbacks. I think he was with Caleres too, Zach Caleres.
Mm-hmm.
That's a Ohio guy, shout out Zach Caleres. But for him to be able to do that, he can take the time to develop Tyler Buckner, a Kenny Minchie, work with a Sam Hartman, and I think that would accelerate the progression of what the offense can be. It's different when you're doing OC and quarterback coach. Yeah. You're trying to bring 2 birds with 1 stone.
Yeah.
But with Gino strictly focused on helping these guys out and developing them, ingratiating them into the offense, getting them to talk with the O-line and what they're doing. And I think this type of group project will work great for Marcus Freeman, who just wants some stability. I just think he wants some consistent stability with guys that want to be there.
Lucky Lefty Podcast, Apple Podcast, Spotify. Tap into our YouTube channel over the Lucky Lefty Podcast. Make sure you smash the like button. Make sure you subscribe. CFB Nation in conjunction with Irish Breakdown. You already know we spin it different. We are very pleased. We always talk to legendary Notre Dame players. And today is no different right here. Hump Day right here. We're going to give you one of the brutes and one of the greatest, look, the NFL is pretty much littered. We lost a legend at Notre Dame when Harry Hiestand stepped away. And not only does he leave a legacy at Notre Dame, but you look at the NFL right now, and
he left his mark.
His mark is all over the NFL. Yeah. And one of those sons.
Even Chicago. He had Chicago offensive line specifically.
Absolutely. And we bring one of those Irish sons onto the Lucky Lefty Podcast right now. Former Notre Dame offensive lineman, now Tampa Bay Buccaneers offensive lineman Robert Hainsey joins us on the Lucky Lefty Podcast. How you doing today, Robert?
I'm good, fellas. How you doing? Shaun, Malik, good to see you guys. Thanks for having me here.
Normally, I would say you're probably doing much better down there in Florida than us, but I'm actually dealing with a 60-degree day here in Chicago. It's actually 60 degrees today. So
that's unbelievable.
We got pretty lucky today. So I want to start here. I don't think I got my first time spending spring, of course, with COVID and everything. Last year was my first time really spending the spring around Harry Hiestand after his return to Notre Dame. And I don't think people really understand from an outsider looking in. You hear about the legend, but like I'm going to miss. He is like in the audio mix of practice. Like it's going to be troubling for me going to practice this spring and not just hearing that voice over everything else way down the field. Like, okay, Harry's here. It's going to be a different sound. It's going to be weird probably for the first couple of days. And also this is what I saw. He would always talk to the offensive lineman, but I would see the running backs go up to him after a play and say, man, did I see that right? Or is there something else I should be looking for? I don't think people really understand the shoes that are about to be filled that Joe Rudolph is stepping into, but he cast a really big shadow at the University of Notre Dame. Just talk about Harry Hiestand, what he meant to you personally and what he means to the university.
Yeah, I mean, I can't really say enough good things about Coach Hiestand. I think he's in the top 2-3 people in my life that I owe what I have as a football player to. The things that he commanded and expected of you, and the standard that was set when he got there with Zach and Watt, and I continued with Nick and Ronnie and Mike and Q and Sam, myself, Liam, Tommy, Banks, all these guys. Like, that is something that really can't be put into words. And you saw it this last year. Like, I love my favorite part about not being at Notre Dame, and there's not many things, but is being a fan and getting to watch the games, because every game I watched this year, and I remember being a freshman and him being like, these old guys watching the game, they're watching you guys. They're watching the offensive line play. I was like, yeah, okay. And now I'm watching the offensive line play, and it's all I do. And I'm like, what are they doing? How are they doing? And like, I watched them get better and better and better this whole year as a group, as a unit, and as individuals. I mean, they got some dudes up there. And I think that, I experienced it after my freshman year. Coach Hiestand left, and we had Coach Jeff Quinn, who did a great job with us for those 3 years. But it was, it's still different. And what they're going to have to do, what those young guys and Joe and Blake and the older guys in the room like Zeke, what they're going to have to do is do everything in their power to not let that standard drop at all. Because every coach is different. And I've never been around a coach like Harry. I think there's some out there, but I haven't been around a coach. Like, that's just the way he is.
That's just the way he is. Just the
exactly.
way.
just without that, you have to be extremely diligent as an individual and hold each other accountable as a group to keep that, or it goes away quickly. It really does. Like you go into practice when he's your coach and you're like, oh man, here we go. But those are the things that made us great and made us compete the way we did with each other.
Yeah.
That's interesting. You just said that. I watched a mic'd up video. I don't know if you remember this from 2019 season. Notre Dame media had you mic'd up for a practice.
Yeah.
And you come out and you're like telling everybody else, like, yo, I'm mic'd up. Like, you see that camera right there? I'm mic'd up. And they were like, what do you mean you think you're mic'd up? Either you're mic'd up or you're not. But you took so much time during practice talking about the change that was made. It was almost you took it upon yourself to make sure that the young guys understood the standard that was set by Harry Hiestand, even though you had a new coach. Is that something you expect Joe Alton, Blake Fisher, and Zeke Carrell to kind of grab the reins in that same type of mentality to make sure that things stay the same, even though different things are being asked from a new coach?
Man, they better. But I think they will because, for me, I took a ton of pride in coaching up younger guys as I got older. Because when I was a freshman, like I was playing left tackle that spring and then moved to right. And like I spent a ton of time with Mike and Q because they were the seniors, they're the older guys. And I was like, I remember doing drills in the weight room with Mike all the time, like afternoons in the spring, just being like, hey, can you come do this? Or hey, can we watch film? Let's watch my one-on-ones and do that stuff. So like I knew what it meant to me to have those guys. So I hoped that as I got older and I could be that figure that it would mean the same thing to them. And I mean, even like last spring I was back there with Tommy Kramer and like we watched some film with the group and then like Joe Walt texted us and was like, hey, can you guys watch some film? We're like, absolutely, dude. Like that's what we're here for.
Yeah.
So I think that those guys will remember that and hopefully they take that into their own role of being like the coach because that's what it's always been. We had guys come back and then the older guys were coaching the younger guys because I don't know, that's just what we always did.
It's just the thing to do.
Yeah.
What's that standard like and how much did it change once you got into the NFL from, I mean, I'm sure you're not traveling in the pack like you was at Notre Dame with the guys. So how much of a difference did you notice when you went to the NFL?
Yeah, it's definitely different. Comparing it, like if you compare it to like what it's like when HH is there, like you had to do those things, or you had to, or if you're the older guy, like you're getting reamed for it. You can't not do it. Like, what are you doing? Like, he's like,
it's more like
he's genuinely shocked that you wouldn't walk out together as a group, which is something I loved about Notre Dame, and I think I realized that. While I was there, I was like, man, I'll probably never have a group like this or a team like this of like people I'm this close to, which like we have a great group in Tampa. Like I love my group, but it's college. We all live together. We spend a lot of time there. And then now people have families, how everyone says it. That's a real thing. So it's different, but like, that's a special bond that like we had as Notre Dame offensive linemen. And that like, anytime you meet anyone that played for HH, like, you have like an automatic bond. You're like, oh,
I know what you went through. I feel
exactly. Like, what it's about. I know you've been through it. So like, I already have an immediate respect for you.
So just sticking with that, your time with Tampa, this year was a very trying season. You lose your all pro center right at the beginning of the training camp. And now you're pushing to service to be a center.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Were you prepared to do that because of your time with Harry Hiestand and being in Notre Dame, having that versatility and being ready to be inserted and snap the ball to the GOAT in his last season? You didn't know that going into the season, but you spent the last season as his primary center. That had to be pretty special.
Absolutely. And it's been an interesting transition. Like I only played tackle at Notre Dame and in high school. So like I never played center. I knew going to like the Senior Bowl that teams were probably going to want me inside center or guard, which whatever, like I'll do whatever. I ended up playing a little center at the Senior Bowl, which I didn't plan on doing. I hadn't really worked on it, but I was just like, let's do it. Just jump in, let it rip, and did all right. Did pretty good, but I think that helped me. That showed like teams that like I can do it and that they can help develop me. And like my rookie year, no way I could have done what I did this year. Wasn't even close to ready. Got through camp and was like, what is this? I was like, I was like, man, I'm bad. And that's okay. That's okay. Like I was playing a new position and I had to figure it out. But as that year went on and I got to play a little bit and practice a little bit and get more confident. And I was working with a guy, AQ Shipley, who I don't know if you guys know or have met before, but unbelievable guy. Played 12 years out of Penn State, ended up retiring that Super Bowl year. That my rookie year, what stayed as our assistant coach because he's been with that staff a lot of his career. So aside from Coach Goodwin, who is our primary offensive line coach or run game coordinator, who coaches like the guards and centers, I was on AQ's hip all the time. I was, and this might be a hairy thing, like. Because it's not like everyone does it, which to me is like, why not? But
like the mentorship,
yes,
like reaching out for the mentorship kind of thing.
But like, it's like, oh, you could stay a little longer and go watch the scout team film with him and work on your technique, or oh, you could do a little extra drills with him on an off day. Like, to me, that was like, of course you do that. That's what you do. That's what you always do.
What you do, yeah.
Like it's crazy to me to think that you wouldn't do that because of Coach Easton to bring that back.
That's right.
But so I worked with him a ton, and he was like, giving me a lot of help in playing center. And he decided not to keep coaching. He's doing the media thing now. He's on Pat McAfee show. But in the off seasons, about this Saturday, I'm about to head out there. I go to Arizona. I stay with him. Well, I stay by myself, but I train with him. And it's just me and him. And we train and we lift and we do drills every day for about a month until I go back to OTAs. And I'll go back out in the summer. And that's what I did this last off season and what I'll continue to do. So that was like, for me, I didn't even know what position I was going to be playing when I got back to camp. So I had spent time working on center and a lot working on left guard. So I was kind of ready to get back with Jensen there and be like, all right, I'm going to go win this left guard job. 3 days into camp without pads on, Jensen gets hurt, which was terrible. Hated that for him because he's taught me a ton too. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, that's kind of that's how it ends up. And so I'm like, okay, well, here I am. And from then, same thing. Like, I was confident and ready and knew that I was going to start. Like, in my mind, I was like, I'm going to be a starter this season. In my mind, I guess it was probably left guard. It ended up being center. And I was like, take this and run. And I did the best I could throughout the season, and tried to just continue getting better and working on things. And when things weren't working, I was going back to basics. That's a quotable area word, back to basics. Go back to basics, go back to drawing board and figure out what you got to do and be intentional with it. That was a big thing. Like intentionality with what you're doing. And you can go out and go through the motions and individual, or you can be extremely intentional in everything you do and you will see results. And I did. So that's kind of a little full circle with how I got with AQ, because he never was like chasing me around. I was like, hey, can we do this? Can we do that? I think he ended up. Yeah. And he's like, he ended up really liking that from me. And I think that's probably the reason why he was like, hey, I'll do this. Like, I see promise in what you can do. I like the way you work. I enjoy working with you. So let's do it. So that's kind of how that ended up. And then this season, I'm really proud of how it went. Started 17 games, got to play a lot, played with some great players, obviously with Tom too. I mean, he's the unbelievable teammate and leader and taught me a ton. So getting to talk about the run game with him, protections, and see how he sees things. I mean, it's invaluable information for a second-year player.
So how tough was it for you? Oh,
no, I just want to say Lucky Lefty podcast will have Robert Hainsey on with us. I just wanted to make sure people that are joining in know who we're talking to. Former Notre Dame offensive lineman Robert Hainsey. Go ahead, Lef. Go ahead.
Yeah, you definitely got to throw the promo in there for sure. But I definitely want to ask, 17 games. It's not like a college season.
No.
So how important or at what point in the 17-game stretch were you like, all right, this is getting a little lengthy. I gotta not get bored with the process. How did you not get, I'm not gonna say bored, but stay up with the 17-game season?
Well, I guess since it wasn't my rookie year, that helps. Because at least I knew how long the season was. Like I've been through one. I didn't really play, but like I had been through it, and you're still like, wow, like we're still playing. Like it's crazy. But I think just I enjoy the game of football, and I enjoy the intricacies of football. And one, going to the NFL, and two, going to center, I had to learn it in a different way.
Mm.
And last year was like everything was coming at once. Like I'm trying to figure it all out. This year I'm in it, and I have a much better understanding to start of what our offense is and how we're doing things. So this year it was a lot of fun for me to like, think about. I was trying to think about it like a coach. Like, how are we dissecting this defense? What are we going to do? Mostly in the run game because the pass is the pass. But like that was really interesting for me. So each week was like a new challenge in that respect, which was a lot of fun.
They're like a puzzle game almost.
Exactly. And so that keeps you kind of going, keeps you thinking about how are we going to do this, or whenever they bring on the run game plan, you're like, oh, I really like this. I love the way we're doing this. So that's a great way. And I got that from AQ. He's been in this. He was in this offense for a long time, so he knows it in, out, backwards. So like, I think I kind of know it. And then I talk to him. I'm like, dang, studying, which I will, and I have been. So it's good, and it's a cool
has like increased, like in terms of the intricacies. Like you thinking, it's just the box, but it turns into so much more when you know an offense, because you said he's been doing it for so long.
Oh yeah.
And so that probably helps you kind of expand your knowledge on football in a lot of ways.
100%. And like when we're trained, like, half the time we're just bullshitting, talking about whatever, and the other half it's like, oh, let's talk. We're talking about football, not like on purpose, but like it's just what we talk about. I'll be like sitting one afternoon thinking about something. I'll be like, oh, okay, and I'll bring that up to him, and then we'll talk for like 30 minutes about like one play or one thing, and just because like he goes on a tangent, and I'm just like sitting there trying to soak it all in because I'm like that.
He just loves it.
That doesn't make sense. He's not just talking about anything. Like it's very. He knows exactly what he's trying to say, and he says it well. So when it comes to like learning the game of football, he's an unbelievable resource.
Man, that's amazing that you talk about that, because I've had the opportunity to be around Malik, former teammates, the Brotherhood, that I try to tell people, like, until you experience the Notre Dame football Brotherhood, it's unlike any other. What's your favorite story with Quentin and Mike? Like, take us back. Because first of all, the fact that we've taken a vote, I don't know if you know this, we've taken a vote of other players we've had on the show, and Mike McGlinchey is hands down winning as the best basketball player.
Oh, for sure.
In Notre Dame football. And I'm like, really? And they're like, yo, Mike could hoop. Like, that dude,
yeah,
that dude
he can.
That's an athlete.
He can. He actually really
super athletic playing basketball, and then he gets stiff sometimes playing tackle. I'm like, just put the basketball fluid with the football. You straight.
But what's your favorite moment with those guys?
I mean, it was just we all like another thing too is, and I know a lot of probably college teams do this, but like I said, how close we were, and every there would be like a summer camp, like the big Irish invasion, maybe summer camp. And after that, all the coaches would leave and go on recruiting. And so it was just us. And we're like, you could like finally breathe for a second. Like that was always when we did like after that camp that evening, we'd always do like a barbecue, our O-line barbecue, and just everyone on the O-line, and then the tight ends, probably two quarterbacks, a bunch of the team would end up there. How much meat
was that?
I don't know. Like it's not like it was like the frozen burgers and dogs from like Costco. Like,
oh yeah,
like
you gotta get
for like 400 burgers.
Gotta get it
work. But those are always anytime we got together as a group, and we did a lot. Always a good time. Like it was just everyone had there was all these different personalities. Like, and Mike and Q are super different because Mike was like always like. He's super eccentric, he's like that guy. He's always singing. He's always dancing, doing that kind of shit.
Because he can sing too. Mike can sing too.
Oh, he loves to sing. So the two of them, but like just that whole group together. Anytime we got together, it was always a good time. And as a freshman, like that was always so cool because you're like, oh, just we're all hanging out together. But you look up to these guys a ton. And so then that's another thing we always made sure to do is like anytime we get together, it's like, hey, everyone come over. And then certain guys like, certain guys are quieter than others and less social than others, but like you'd be like, no, like you're coming to the house and we're all gonna like hang out together and party and like have a good time. But,
It's not a
you
choice.
will be here. You can leave after a while, but like you have to come and you have to spend time together.
Yes.
Like it was like mandatory. Like you have to.
Yeah, it's like a mandatory hangout session for sure.
It was.
It was cool though.
It was. We had to. It's like this is what we do, and like you're gonna be a part of the group. You can't just be a part of the group in the Goog. Like you gotta be a part of the group all the time.
All the time. And that's where the pack comes from, where they just be herding around together.
Exactly. That's the best. It's the best because like even when you go back now and like you see them all walking together, and you're like,
yeah, we don't have to do it now, but they just start naturally doing it.
You're like, that's what it's about.
Yo, which is crazy because I was talking to one of the kids that came in the 23 class, offensive lineman, Charles Jagasaw, and that was the one thing. There were two things that stood out for him in the recruitment. He was like, I came and everybody moved together. And he said the second thing was Harry teaches the backups just as hard as he teaches the starters. Yeah. He was like, he said that impressed me the most. He said, because I know coming in, I'm going to be a backup. And he said, seeing that, he was like, it sold me on the program.
Yeah, exactly. And I hope Joe Rudolph, right? The new coach coming in. And I hope he takes, I don't know him. I know he was at Virginia Tech before this?
Virginia Tech and Wisconsin before that.
Wisconsin, yeah. And Wisconsin always has had a great standard as offensive lineman. So I think that those are the things that make the great coaches great, because like even with Harry, I remember like everyone's like, oh, you better learn how to play defense, because if you give a bad look on defense, it's over. But that's another little thing, part of the standard, like you have to do. If you're giving a bad look, like you're getting it's gonna be bad.
Yeah, you get cussed out for not playing good defense on the offensive drill. Like you gotta really, because he'll be like, "Are you gonna do anything? Or are you just gonna stand there?" Like, he's gonna get
Oh, it's great.
Yeah. Lucky Lefty podcast, former Notre Dame offensive lineman, current NFL Tampa Bay Buccaneers offensive lineman Robert Hainsey joins us right here. Let's get to some moments. What was the moment you knew Notre Dame was the place as you were being recruited?
I remember exactly where I was. I was at IMG. I went down to IMG those last 2 years of high school, and I had plenty of offers. I knew I wanted to see what Notre Dame was about, though, and I was like telling my parents I want to figure it out. So like we reached. I don't even know. I think I talked to Coach Denson a lot, who just got the job. Shout out.
Yeah,
he's got the running back job at the Cardinals. I saw on Twitter.
Oh wow! Yeah, congrats.
But I was like, we got to figure this out. So I think I was high school sometime. I think I want to say in the spring, or maybe in the spring, I went up with my dad. I was like, I want to go check it out. I don't remember exactly how I got there. They hadn't offered me, but when I got there, I met with Coach Easton for a long time, saw everything, did all the other recruit stuff, and then they offered me, and I was like, thank you. And then I knew when I left, I need my mom to get here. I was like, I need to take my mom because I need her to see it, because I think this might be it. I remember we were there, again, doing all the recruit stuff. We were having lunch at the Jordan Hall of Science. You guys remember it was that building? And it's painted like it's the Sistine Chapel. Like it's unbelievable.
It's crazy.
And I remember sitting there at lunch with my mom, just us two at a table. I'm looking around, like looking at the ceiling painted, feeling that feeling. And I was like, I want to come. I was like, this is it. I was like, this is where I'm going. And she was like, well, don't say anything. Relax. Because obviously I had to tell my dad and stuff. So that was probably a Saturday. I remember going home, telling my dad. And then that Tuesday, I called Coach Easton and Coach Kelly and was like, hey, this is where I'm coming. This is it.
Now, was Easton, did he give you an excited, or what was the response? He's like, all right, that sounds good. I'll see you.
Outstanding. Good. No, he was excited. He was excited. I don't remember at the time. I just remember calling him, being like, hey. And then he put me on the phone with Coach Kelly. And that was that.
Yeah.
And then I early enrolled. I went in January, so.
Oh, he was
Talk
excited.
about that. Like, what's that like for a freshman, early enrollment? Like coming in, and it was this Coach Bayless at that time?
Coach Bayless and I got there at the exact same time.
Yeah.
Oh,
January
that's when y'all was
2017.
changing. That's when y'all was changing everything up. And y'all went
The
like
staff was changing. Yeah.
Yeah.
came in through a crazy
For me,
workout.
best thing I could have ever done. Well, I was down at IMG. It's a little bit different, so it's all kind of set up to do that. Probably wouldn't have been able to do that if I stayed at Gateway back in Pittsburgh. But for me, like, it's what I needed to do. And like the reason I went to IMG was like that was a big decision in itself. But my thoughts was like, okay, I want to do all these things. I want to go to the NFL. I say I want to do all these things. If I really want to do them, like I have to do this, which being go to IMG. And I'll say that that's probably the second best decision I ever made after going to Notre Dame because it set me up for success. So I early enroll. I get to spend that spring with them. I was at left tackle. I remember that like right before we left for summer, Coach Easton was like, hey, be ready to work at right tackle. Because it was like Mike, Q, Sam, Bars, and then right tackle was like Tommy and Liam.
Yeah,
He's like, you're going to be able to work in the right tackle. I'm like, okay. We go to camp. We're bouncing around. Me and Tommy end up rotating with the ones at right tackle kind of towards the end-ish of camp, beginning of the season. So we're like splitting reps like right down the middle.
Yeah.
And we never really knew what was going to happen. And then I remember being in the locker room. We played Temple, going to play Temple my freshman year. And like I guess we kind of suspected, but Coach Easton never said it. And I remember being in the locker room, you guys are going to rotate this. You guys are going to rotate. I was like, all right, cool. Sounds good. So for that whole season, Tommy
kick off like you about to.
I know.
He's like, we'll just do both, like whatever.
So for that whole season, and people think this is crazy, and looking back, it is pretty crazy. But that whole season, Tommy Kramer and I rotated every series. He started most of the games, and then I would come in the next series, and we go back and forth the whole
like
season.
Down the middle.
Except, we both ended up with like around 500 snaps or like high 400s, like very similar snap counts. It was funny because like if it was like obvious pass, like 2 minute, I would go in.
Yeah, so the defense would know. I mean,
but it was like 2 minutes anyway. And Tommy will tell you this: I was a better pass protector than him at the time, so I don't feel bad about saying that. Tommy's my best friend. So like if it was obvious pass, I would go in, and like there was like we played Miami that year when we got smoked in Coral Gables or whatever. So like I played like 90% of snaps that game. Tommy had like 15 snaps the whole game just because the whole game was obvious pass. I ended up playing most of it. There was another game where it just so happened like he had all the snaps, just kind of how it worked out, and I didn't have very many. But over the course of the season, it evened out, which was a really cool experience because, like I said, very uncommon. But it worked for us. The next year, he kicked in the right guard, and I stayed at right tackle, and we played next to each other for the next 3 years. So pretty awesome experience doing that. And like that, like, so my point was the early enroll thing prepared me to be able to do that. If I just came in the summer, there's no way I was doing that. No way. Yeah. I believe that. I think I would have been fine in the long run, but not like, I don't know if that's how it would have happened. So for me, 100% bought in. Also, like everyone's like, you missed your last little bit of high school. I'm like, dude, looking back now, thank God I wasn't in high school. That's part of the reason I went to IMG. I was like, I need to get out of here. And so I was 16 and I was like, all right, I'm going to move to Florida, I guess, and figure it out. And I figured it out. So
you talk about that 2017 season, but I want to talk about how it led to 2018, right? Because 2017 started like, this could be it. Like, this could be a season. You guys were bludgeoning teams.
We were unranked. Got to number 3.
Yeah,
before we
lost to Miami. And if you guys win that game, you had a couple of opportunities, a couple of deep passes that were, missed just barely. That could have changed the outcome of that game. But then you come back in 18. Are you guys coming into the 18 season feeling like, you know what, we let go of the rope a little bit. Let's go ahead and make sure we get to our destination, which ultimately led to the college football playoff?
Yeah, I think what's funny about 2018, I think about it, and when I think back, we were 12-0, and there was almost, and we'll talk about this sometimes, but like remember like that season, like we didn't lose a game, and it almost felt like we lost every game. Like even the games we blew guys out, like it felt like the coaches were not pleased. It's like, oh, you just keep going, and we just kept winning. But that's the one thing I remember about that, and I don't know if that has anything to do with it or not. I think that first year of Coach Bayless has a lot to do with it. I think his standard, the way he ran things, and like the respect I have for him as a coach is unbelievable. So at that point, we had about a full 1.5 years with him, like going in, like time to go. And I think we put a good team. We put a really good team together, and we had a good sometimes the schedule at Notre Dame is you win all your games, you're in the playoff. The schedule lined up well, because we didn't have any. We had some good games. I mean, Michigan opened the year up with Michigan, beat them, so that's a huge start. The whole offseason felt like it was just to play Michigan. Sometimes it was like all we gotta do is beat Michigan. Like it was our only game of that season.
Yeah.
Going so. Get to the playoff, and obviously don't really finish. You don't finish how you put Notre Dame out there as, hey, we can make it. And the next couple of years, like my senior year, we made it back too. So
yeah,
it was a cool ride for sure.
Tough matchups, right? Getting Clemson one year in the semifinal, and then getting Alabama.
Yeah, I mean,
2020.
Yeah,
as good as we were those years, which my senior year we were really good. I thought that was one of the better teams. As good as we were, man, they were playing a different caliber of football.
Yeah,
they just were. Like they just were. And I don't know where you make up that difference when you're Notre Dame. I think about
when
that.
You say the difference though. What like the difference? Like explain when you say the difference, because I believe just like you're saying, you were good in all aspects. Run the ball, throw the ball. You can play great defense. You got veteran leadership. You got some first-round talent on the team.
Yeah.
But that's just not to say.
No, we had some first-round, like our most talented player, our highest drafted player after that year was Jeremiah Wusu-Kamara, and he was a stud.
Stud.
I mean, they had between Devontae Smith and Mac Jones, or not Mac, well, him too, but Devontae Smith and Najee Harris. I mean, they were like those two players are. There's very few people. There was very few people in college that could guard them, and they're still hard to play against in the NFL. Like they're just really, really, really good players, and they have an unbelievably coached team, and they're unbelievably. That was the one thing I loved. Is like you play bad teams. I remember playing like Syracuse that year, and they wouldn't shut up. Their whole wouldn't shut up. I'm like, guys, we're destroyed. Like 30 something. I don't remember what the score was, but we were winning. I was like, this is brutal. Alabama, like on the field, one of the most disciplined teams I played. Like, weren't like even their D linemen, which D linemen are known for that kind of stuff. They weren't like that. Like they were like a respectable team or a very respectable opponent, and I did respect that. Like those are things you notice that you might not know if you're not on the field with them. So, but they're just some
like it's a good battle. It's not like they're going to try to do some cheat to win. They're just going to play the game.
No, it's like when you watch like MMA and you see two great fighters try to kill each other for 25 minutes, and afterwards are like, dude, good fight.
That was good fight.
It's like that's what it is.
Man, they got a heck of USC coming up with John Jones.
John Jones.
Yeah, this is going to be a good
Saturday.
one. Yeah. Yeah, I think that might go to full. Like that might be that type of match you just talked about. Like at the end, you're like, man, I don't know.
There's a lot of good ones.
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
Islam and Volkanovski fight a couple weeks ago was phenomenal.
Yeah,
if you saw that one, but yeah, so that was just those are the differences. It's hard to quantify, and I don't really know where it is. Like I don't know how you do that because, like I said, like. With that team we had in 2020, I would have put us up against anyone, and we did. And then we beat Clemson in the regular season, which was awesome. Lost to them in the ACC championship, and then lose to Alabama. So that's how it ends, and that's how it ends. Like Alabama won the national championship that year, I think, and then the year we lost to Clemson in the playoff, Clemson won the national championship. So I guess there might be a little bit of solace in that, but still lost.
Yeah, they had to go through us. They had to go through us.
And it's interesting to hear that from you guys because the fan base, the Notre Dame fan base, that's what they sit and ponder. like, okay, how can we take that next half step to get over the hump, to be able to win one of these semifinals and just get to the national championship and give ourselves an opportunity. And I guess the question could be like, maybe you just answered it. Like, as you walked off the field in those games, did you think we can beat these guys? We could have beat them. Or did you think like, man, I don't know what we need to do to be able to match up against these type teams?
Well, I think we could. Like we could beat them. Yes, that day we didn't. The things like have to go 100% right for us, for sure. They won. They were the better teams those days. But like that difference, yeah, like ultimately that's Coach Freeman's job. And I think from what I've seen, like this last year, a few bumps, whatever. Like you don't go to the playoff every year. You don't go 12-0 every year. That's not super realistic. But you're gonna have you're gonna end up in a window of time where you can make these runs. And the goal is to get in that window and play your best football in that window because you have to have the right people and the right players. So like changes always happen with like quarterback change or coaching changes, new offensive coordinator. Like it's football. There's changes fluidly throughout the entire season with injuries and everything, and in the off season with the stuff that's going on now. So as those things go, like it's up to the coaches to put it all together, and I think they will. I think Coach Freeman, when I talk to him, I love talking to him. I think he's done a great job. I think will continue to do a great job, and I think that being at Notre Dame and like the way he's recruited, and I don't follow recruiting heavily. I follow like some of the Notre Dame accounts on Instagram where I'll see like we have like the 4th best class in like the country. I'm like, oh, that's pretty good. So getting those 5 stars and those players who are going to do really well, and also probably at this point taking advantage of the whole transfer thing and the NIL thing and figuring out a way for like that's a landscape that's going to change college football completely. And I have no idea how, but it'll be this next 5 to 10 years is going to be incredibly interesting on that front, I think.
So, big time question. You didn't have an opportunity to see yourself in college football from a gaming standpoint. EA Sports is bringing college football back.
Yeah.
Are you going to create yourself?
Well, you remember how on NCAA 14 you could like every year you could keep playing it, but download some crazy person would go create every roster
and download it.
So maybe I could get it, and then maybe I could go back and get like the 2020 roster and play with Notre Dame then.
You're right. That would be cool. That would be cool because they do that for like for NBA 2K and all the other games. You're right. I never thought about that. That's a pretty smooth way to do it because I think there are a lot of players that missed out on being able to have that experience. Like Malik, I think Malik said he just created himself for different teams when he was in high school. He would just put himself at quarterback.
I did play one game of Madden. I have like we get Madden. We get like a code for it. I don't know if the NFL gets it or if I got it through my agent, whatever. I was like, all right, I'll download it. I did play one game. I played one game as the Bucks with myself in there, just so I could do it.
How did that go?
I think we won. I think we were playing the Chiefs. It was like the Super Bowl rematch. I was just dicing them up, just calling the plays.
Give me your favorite moment inside of Notre Dame Stadium.
We're beating Clemson, hands down. That was really cool. And like the coolest part about that was like, it's COVID. So first of all, 15,000 fans made it feel like 80, which was outstanding. And that's one thing I love about Notre Dame is like people here. I'm in Texas right now. My girlfriend Rose at Texas, and I've talked to some people. Like they play bad. Like if Texas plays a bad team, like the stadium won't fill up. If Alabama plays a really bad team, I've heard like the stadium won't fill up. If we play a team that's like not necessarily our caliber, like it's not like we're playing Clemson, but like we've played like smaller schools.
Yeah,
our stadium still fills up, and there's still 80,000 people there cheering. And that year, we only got up to like 15 with all the COVID and stuff.
Yeah.
But we go beat – I mean, that game was just awesome. Double overtime, all the things that happened. I remember, like, Kyron, I think Kyron fumble or something, and he was, like, killing himself for it on the sideline. I'm like – and I love Kyron. He's an unbelievable guy and player. And I was like, dude, we're going to get this back. And then we get the ball back, I think the fourth quarter, and I'm like, hey, we're getting this ball. We're going down the field. We're going to score. We're going to go to overtime. Like, it's going to happen. Let's go. Let's believe it. And we did. Overtime happens. We finish, and everyone's just run on the field. And it was just like I got goosebumps thinking about it. Like, it was unbelievable. And one of the cooler things too was I remember after leaving, just walking back to the car, like a student, I don't even know him. Some guy came up to me. He was a student. He was just like, "Thank you." And I was like, "You're welcome." He was like, "You have no idea like what this means to us." And I was like, "You have no idea what this means to me, but you're welcome," because like that, all anyone wanted that year was normalcy, was something to be excited about because we couldn't go to class for a while. Like everything was just so strange on campus. It wasn't what it should be for college. And so that was like, I think that meant just a lot to everyone who was there and like just made people happy. And it made me happy too.
That was a classic game. I mean, you guys first play from scrimmage, just buck sweep, down the left sideline. Did you guys set that up all week saying, look, if we run this right, it's going to be a big play?
And it's one of those games where just like you said, if we play the way we can play, like we're gonna win, and we can win. And even with like some mistakes we had, like Ian on that scramble fumbled at the south end zone.
Yeah,
and I was like, oh, like we're about to score in the red zone, and those things happen.
Yeah,
that's like how does that change the game? But I remember like scoring the first play. I mean, that's an unbelievable way to start the game because like you're just like. What you're like, because they're number one. I don't know what we were ranked at the time. We were probably pretty high though.
Yeah,
because it was probably like a 1-4, like a 1-5 matchup. But like they're favored in our stadium. But you go out, run the ball the first play, take it however far and score. It's like, what's up? We're here. Let's do this, and then you're just rolling. So
yeah, they were actually ranked third, and you guys are ranked fifth.
Okay,
three versus 5. Yeah.
So 7:30 in Notre Dame Stadium. I mean, in November
under the lights. Yeah,
unbelievable.
Absolutely. As we get ready to let you go, and we appreciate you giving us time today, Robert. What's your favorite moment on campus? I'm so interested by this because we get so enthralled by what you guys accomplish on the field. For me, I try to explain to people when you walk the Notre Dame campus, it's almost like you feel the history. Like it's in the air. Like it's hard to explain. And I'm like walking around the stadium and I'm like walking in between the buildings and I'm like thinking about all the people in American history or world history that have actually walked the same path. Yeah. It's really something to really experience.
One thing I never did was which I didn't do this on purpose, but I kind of realized that it's a good thing. I never really like walked with like AirPods in or listened to music. Just because I think I didn't feel like putting them together, which takes 3 seconds. But like I just start walking. But I realized like I'm glad I don't do that. Like whenever I walked around campus, I tried to take in campus.
Yeah,
I miss campus. Like I really need to I hope to get back for the spring game because I really love it there. And like my girlfriend is a 5th generation Notre Dame graduate. Like her family's been like a part of Notre Dame for a long time, and we met there, which is cool. And so, thinking about her grandparents and great grandparents going there, and like you said, the history behind it. Getting to go, I remember like you get to go for one of the classes, you get to go to Ted Hesberg's office in the library. It's the top of the library. And like that's an unbelievable experience because it's kind of still sitting there exactly the same as he had it, as people would go. And like her dad went to Notre Dame when Ted Hesberg was the president. And so like, and he would tell stories about like how cool he was. And he would just like say hello to everyone. He'd talk to you. His door was always open. Like people would just go in and talk to him as the president of the university. I loved going to the grotto because that was like it might be Notre Dame cliche, but I don't really care because like you go there and like especially like if it's night and quiet and no one's there and you can just kind of sit and reflect and just take it in. I remember like I went right before I left for like the last time before I was like probably going home and didn't know like when I was going to come back or I guess after pro day probably or right after that Rose Bowl game, we got back and I remember like it was like done. I was like, this is it. And I went to the grotto before I left, and I was like driving down that road, and I was like, oh my God. I was like bawling, crying. I was like, fuck,
Wow.
this is gonna be up. I'm gonna miss it. And I really do. It's an unbelievable place. There's so many great people there that you just come in contact with that like don't have to be great people, but they just are. Like I remember when we were all staying at Morrison during COVID, like the whole team was there.
Yeah.
And like the people running the valet, like stop and talk to them every day for like 5 minutes. Just unbelievable people. Things like that I don't necessarily know are other places because you haven't experienced other places, but I have experienced Notre Dame, and I know that stuff's there, and that's what makes it the most special place in the world to me.
Yeah, the best way I can describe it is it's a very angelic place.
Yeah.
It's just a very angelic place. And I remember the first time I went there to cover Marcus Freeman's introductory press conference for the spring, leading up to the spring, not when he was introduced, but when they came back after the bowl game. And I got there extra early because I had to drive down from Chicago. And I walk up, and this guy, I know Joe is he's the best guy. He's standing there at the gate, and we're talking because I'm like maybe an hour early. And he's looking at me, and he sees me looking down at the field, right? And the field still has a little snow on it. And I'm looking down the tunnel. And he keeps looking at me. He keeps looking at me. So after he catches me like the third time, he's like, go ahead and walk down. And I looked at him. Man, my eyes got big. And I was like, are you sure? He was like, go ahead. And I was like, I'm about to walk down. I was like, I'm about to walk down this tunnel. This is crazy. And walk onto the field. So it's angelic, man. And the people around it, they support that. You know, the way they entreat you and the way they make you feel around that campus is the absolute best. Robert Hainsey,
100%.
LL Nation, he joined us today. Great stories on Harry Hiestand, what's needed for Joe Rudolph and that offensive line to take the next step forward and continue that greatness. We appreciate you guys. Look, I just want to let you know, I'm going to throw it out there now. We do a players lounge where a players only lounge where Malik talks to the players by himself. I'm not on the screen. We already did one with the running backs and wide receivers. We have to get one where it's like you, Q, Mike, and Ronnie, and just offensive line guys just talking about carrying on that tradition. Let's do it, man, because I know you guys have some off time. You'll be doing some traveling. Let's try and get to it maybe around the blue and gold game. Like
that'd be
you
awesome.
Guys, yeah, absolutely. So
hopefully
we'll
get up there. I hope I can get up there. That'll be great.
Absolutely. Robert, have a great day, man. Stay safe.
Thanks, brother.
You're down in Texas, so I know you're going to eat good. I'm not worried about that.
Absolutely. Have a good one. I appreciate y'all having me on.
And appreciate you, Robert. Once again, LL Nation, Robert Hainsey right here on the Lucky Lefty podcast. He talked about the legacy of Harry Hiestand. He talked about the hiring of Joe Rudolph. And he talked about the pressure on Joe Rudolph to fill those shoes. And also what the veteran offensive linemen like Zeke Carrell, Blake Fisher, and Joe Alt have to do to make sure that the transition and the level of excellence continues on going into the 2023 season. But he also talked about some great moments and some great games during this time. He also talked about what it was like as a freshman being mentored by Mike McGlinchey and also Quentin Nelson. So once again, go and listen to it. If you joined us late, go and rewind right now. We don't mind. Man, we come to give you the best with the Lucky Lefty podcast. We are the home of the misguided passion, but we also make sure that we spin it different for you. Absolute great content. We had to go because he had another appointment. He's on his Hollywood stuff, but you know what time it is.
Petticoat, 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 Junction.
It's time to get petty.
Oh, we did a good job executing.
Are you upset with something?
And fire up the Petticoat Junction train.
I just don't like you.
You don't?
No.
What is today's petty historic? Petty Junction.
Petticoat Junction.
Petty Junction, pettiest story of the day, brought to you by Onora Whiskey, OnoraWhiskey.com, that premium American whiskey, OnoraWhiskey.com. Who's on the petty train today? Well, I told you yesterday, I teased it because I knew I was going to have an opportunity to put Chicagoans on the petty train, right? Because they came out, not in mass. I think only 37% of registered voters took part in the mayoral election yesterday to get to the main runoff on April 5th. And look, they spoke loud and clear. They were mad petty towards incumbent Lori Lightfoot, who pretty much created her own headstone on the 5th floor of City Hall when she let the Chicago Bears go to Arlington Heights. We knew what time it was. So, Chicagoans, I had to throw you on the petty train for my own personal petty reasons. Now, there's a lot of buzz around this Jalen Carter story, as we said before. I don't know about you, LL Nation, or anybody else that's watching. I'm pretty happy that social media and smartphones weren't around when I was 18, 19 years old. Or just because, look, the things that are happening now just didn't get the run from a media standpoint. Like, players have been carrying guns on campuses to protect themselves going back to my time when I was at the University of Illinois. That was a long time ago. Why it's still a debate to me why they feel like, we had incidents with Notre Dame players, unfortunately, and firearms because they felt like they needed protection. It's just an unfortunate thing that these players go to institutions and for whatever reason, maybe it's the locals or other vices around campus, they feel like they have to protect themselves, which is petty within itself. But here's Nolan Smith talking about his teammate. And Nolan Smith was injured all year, got injured early in the season, but he's still projected to be a first-round pick, defensive end, outside linebacker for the University of Georgia. This is him at the combine earlier today talking about Jalen Carter. But he said something here that was mad petty, and I had to put him on a petty train.
Georgia. So we played with a light box. That's what Coach Smart says. We play with 6 in the box, and it's just amazing that the guys, you count on that man next to you. Like I tell JC, he's just misunderstood. No matter what, I can count on JC to do his job. And if we got a game to run, I can count on that person next to me to do their job. And my first year when I got there, I was like, this is crazy. Like, I went against Andrew Thomas, Solomon McKinley. I would never forget my first fall camp practice. Solomon McKinley broke my nose, and it was just leaking. And I was like, no, I ain't going outside. I put a tampon in and cut it, and we went to work. So I would never forget. That was like my setting moment. I was like, oh yeah, this box at Georgia real. And Solomon McKinley, a big boy, I ain't gonna lie. And it just closing on counter every day, seeing Aziz do it. Aziz a close on counter from the apex, and I seen him bent somebody's face mask once. Those are just some of the stories about, and that's at practice. We practice hard at Georgia, and that's just one thing.
You mentioned this is.
Hold on. Let's go back to the beginning because we might have missed it. Listen to what he said.
With less at Georgia. So
that dude said we do more with less at Georgia. Nolan Smith. Look, man. Look, you're the same person that said they picked you to go 7-5 this year. Look, we understand who Georgia is. You don't have to talk yourself up and make the impressive accomplishment of back-to-back championships look even better. It's impressive enough on its own. Stop capping, man. What do you mean you do more with less at Georgia? What? Are you kidding me? You do more with less? Stop it. Just stop it, man. Just stop it. I don't know what you're looking for. I don't know if you're looking for further approval for the University of Georgia and what you guys have accomplished, but you're not getting it from me. You're just not getting it from me, man. Relax. We do more with less at Georgia. Really? Really? Man, take a seat on the petty train. Hey, not on the petty train, but shout out to Isaiah Foskey for showing love to who he thinks is going to fill his shoes at the University of Notre Dame when he spoke at the combine earlier today.
been ready for a big role since pretty much he stepped on campus. Yeah, Jordan Botelho is my guy. He shows that he's very versatile in pass rush. He can stop the run, and he's really like a menace to every single offensive line. He's really aggressive at a point of attack, and he can just dominate any tackle that he goes against.
Yo, Isaiah Foskey, letting it be known. Don't worry about losing me. Jordan Botelho has been waiting for this moment since he stepped on campus. And he continued to talk about Jordan Botelho probably for another 30 seconds. So look, high praise coming from Isaiah Foskey to one Jordan Botelho. And if he can live up to the words of Isaiah Foskey, that will go a long way to that Notre Dame defensive line wrecking havoc, because I fully expect the linebacking core led by the sophomores and the leadership of J.D. Bertrand to finally take that step forward and become a linebacking crew to be reckoned with on the Notre Dame football schedule. Great show. Love LL Nation. Appreciate you guys so much. We did have a super chat that I wanted to get to. I think our guy Truman Dumel put it up there. And Truman, I didn't tap it during the interview because, like I said, what you requested had already been talked about. But thank you, Truman Theodore Dumel. Thank you for the super chat. He said, hey, Hainsey, your thoughts on Joe Rudolph? And hey, come to the New York Jets. I'll pass that along, but he definitely broke down what he expects from Joe Rudolph earlier in his interview right at the beginning. So you can go back and check that out. All right. So, yes, I know Malik was in KL. I know he was in 14, but Malik said when he was in high school, he used to create himself and put himself on Notre Dame, Ohio State, and other teams. I know Jay Henry, that's big cap, right? Kirby got him top 5 recruiting classes, and he says that. And I couldn't believe it when I heard it. Like, we do more with less at Georgia. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me, man. You have got to be kidding me. Frank, I agree, Frank. Get out of town. They 3 deep at every position. Every position. I guess he feels that way because they did start or have 5 freshmen in the starting lineup at some point this year. So maybe that's what he's talking about. I have no clue. He is big cap, though. Big cap with that one. We'll be back. I'm not sure what's going on. I did see the Irish breakdown was pushed back because our guy B. Drisk is feeling under the weather. So we'll be back tomorrow with another great episode of the Lucky Lefty podcast. Probably be talking about some early combine stuff because combine will have jumped off for at least an hour and a half before we're on air. So for Left, I'm Shaun Davis. We bid you adieu until tomorrow for another great episode of the Lucky Lefty podcast. Have a great Wednesday. But most of all, you have to make sure that you spin it different.